no, it's cold outside.
I know. It was 33 degrees when I woke up, and I did not want to embrace that at all.
And it's going to get colder.
Yeah, just colder. I mean, we're in November. Tomorrow is November 1st.
Wow.
And so while it's not winter yet, it's starting to feel like winter. The weather is just cold.
Yeah. So this is something, that I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of people struggle with every year, with the winter coming and the cold coming and what that means. And there's a name for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's called winter blues.
Yep, winter blues. And so it's funny because when we were preparing for this, the one thing that came to my mind at first is like, oh no, it's going to be so cold. But then as I started reflecting, I started realizing like how many positive memories I do have with the winter. And somehow like my perception of what the winter is not in line with my actual experience of the winter. Like it has such a bad like name. Mm-hmm. But actually when it comes down to it, some of the best memories that I have of the winter are sledding down the front stairs or sitting with hot chocolate and marshmallows and just like having so many memories at the fireplace. So there's so many positive things like skiing, snow tubing. Those memories are like some of the most like fuzzy memories, I would call them. But then again, every time the winter comes, I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Cold.
So I think that when you were saying that, it made me think of, there's so many things I love about the winter. Like I love wearing my winter boots. I love my winter sweaters, the cozy clothing. I love going on midwinter vacation, going somewhere sunny when it's cold at home. I love skiing. I love winter sports. But the things that I don't like about the winter and the things that I like about the summer, I think for me outweighs what I do like about the winter. And that's why even though when we break it down, there's so many things that we love about the winter, there's a lot of fear and anxiety being like, I can't believe it's the winter. I can't believe I have to kind of get through the next 6 months. Also, the winter is very long. It's not like 2 months of real cold. Oh, so fun. We can go skiing. And it starts like in October, it starts getting cold. Yeah. And it's cold till March.
Mm-hmm. Last year we had snow in October. So it was a really early winter. And also once we switch the clocks, the days get so short. And I think the darkness is also what's really, really hard to handle. Because when you wake up, sometimes it's still dark outside, right? The sun today is only rising by 7:15. Yeah. I mean, next week we'll switch the clocks and it'll be a drop earlier. But then also like by the time 5 o'clock hits, it's getting dark. Yeah. It's a short day.
It's a short day. People who are working 9-to-5 jobs and maybe have to travel early in the morning don't even get much sunlight. Don't get outside. So I decided that this winter is being different for me. Okay, I'm not gonna just like endure the winter. So I went and did a lot of research on winter blues and how to get kind of your best winter. And what came up was, it's my favorite. I'm gonna have to try it and see what happens. So so I saw in the Scandinavian countries that they don't look at it as the winter is just a time to endure. They look at it as like an opportunity. So I really read what they do to kind of get like some inspiration and some tips of what I can take on and kind of copy them.
Yeah. So what is it that the Scandinavians do? Like, how do they incorporate this time of year? What is it that they do best?
Okay, so they have this term, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct, but I think it's pronounced hygge. And that's the definition of looking at it as a time to like enjoy and relax and cuddle up and get together with old friends. So I think, if you would want to put it in a sentence, hygge, like I had a really good hygge last night by having a chess game with my friend by the fire.
It sounds like a really good like introverted party where it's almost like everybody is warm inside even though it's freezing outside. But it's just like a time to like reflect within yourself or to sit and to maybe like be more with family, be more with friends, do things that are like more inside the house and less like loudness in your life and more like reflective.
Yeah. So it's like it's a time to really appreciate that, those kind of things that sometimes we don't have time for.
I really like that because it's almost like appreciating the time rather than saying, oh, this is so bad, right? Your mentality about it is just like, the winter is coming and like just like waiting to like pass or waiting for it to be over and instead saying like, no, this is a time of the year that is an opportunity. Whereas like the other months you might be out and you might be with work and friends and doing things that are just like bigger. Whereas now this is in a different way bigger, right? You're doing activities that are more family focused, that are more inner focused.
Right.
It's almost like you have that time to work on yourself. You have that time to do more thinking, that
Right.
time to journal, that time to like spend time with family members or friends that you wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity to. It's almost like the weather forces you in. It's sort of like reminding me of Shabbos,
Right.
right? It's like a forced break,
Right.
a forced time to look
Exactly.
within yourself.
Exactly. You're right. And exactly. And so the same way so many people are like, oh, Shabbos, I have so many things to do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of looking at it as a time to endure, you could just look at a time, okay, what can I get out of this and what can I appreciate from it?
Yeah, I really like that. I think like I'm going to try to apply that this year to my winter
Yeah.
just to see like what comes out of it, because I am tired of having that mentality.
Right.
Like it bothers me every single year that I'm upset about it, and I don't want to
Right.
be upset
Right.
about the winter anymore.
Exactly.
I want to really appreciate the winter, and I want to build more memories, and it's sort of like I want to bring it back into my control rather than feeling like this weather is taking me over or
Right.
that I have to move to Florida because
Exactly.
I'm not ready to move. So
Right. But I do threaten moving to Florida like every day in the winter.
Yeah.
That's it. Why are we living in New York? We're crazy. We should move to Florida.
But you know, the interesting thing is that when I did research like about seasonal affective disorder, because that's winter blues is when someone's mood is like a little bit off, but like they're not exactly in a depressive state. But seasonal affective disorder is a real type of depression that actually people suffer with during the winter months, which is more when it's freezing cold, they start to get symptoms of depression. And it's
Right.
not just for 1 week, it's more than 2 weeks where they feel more agitated, they're not eating or they're eating too much, like all the symptoms of depression, sadness, staying in bed longer than they should be, not hanging out with people. Those experiences come out with seasonal affective disorder. But interestingly enough, I thought it was only winter. It comes out in summer too.
Right.
Because some people don't like the summer or the heat, and they're actually experiencing seasonal affective disorder
Right. Yeah. I think
during the summer months.
I think I talked about that in our summer podcast. That
Yeah.
it does come out in the summer. I think we see it more in the winter,
Yes,
but there
completely.
is definitely a percentage
Yeah.
that separates from this in the
And
summer.
also, just another fun fact is that it affects women more than it affects men. More women are affected by seasonal affective disorder than men are, which I don't know what the roots of that are or where that comes from, but it's just something to keep in mind.
Right. Yeah, and I think that with, seasonal affective disorder, there's different treatments that can help the winter. And some of them might help from people who are suffering from maybe a more serious case of winter blues.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is, light. There's a lot of studies and research on light therapy.
Yeah.
But I think if we go back more to the natural cause, at the end of the day, winter blue, seasonal affective disorder, it's coming from the loss of light.
Yeah.
It's the deficiency of vitamin D. And I think that try to get outside and get as much light as possible,
Mhm.
even in those cold, dark days.
Yeah. And there are like certain light bulbs that show or they've proven to help with it. I don't know if it's a complete cure, but some people it does help
definitely
as well.
helps.
And fish oil as well is shown to help. So lots of omega-3 and eating a lot of salmon has that, or just to take a capsule or a vitamin, like those things have really shown to help people. But in addition to the sunlight, I think there's also the aspect of our daily routine is different. So you're not necessarily being with people as much because it's so cold. It's harder
Right.
to get out. So there's like we always say nature versus nurture. I think here it's on the one hand there's like the environmental part, but then there's also the social part. So
Right.
there is the weather and there is the daylight piece and there is like the genetic or biological component, but then there still is I think the social aspect of it that really does influence that. And so
Yeah, it's making me think of the fact that I didn't hate winter till I had kids.
mm,
I was fine with it. I was fine with the winter as a single girl. Like it was fine. I had fun. I would go out to eat with my friends. We would, I remember those like cozy nights, long restaurant dinners, like 5 courses, just, to a couple hours at night. We would, I would watch a lot of movies that night. I would do a lot of work, focus on college, go on vacation, go to the mall. I don't know, it was skiing because I love skiing. Like it was fine.
mhm,
I think that children bring a dynamic where it's easier to be with kids outdoors.
mhm.
So when the winter takes that away, it makes it harder. You're home with the kids, whatever time you get home from work or whatever whenever you pick them up from school, and it's a long afternoon.
Yeah.
I think that's something that to put in, and I wonder if other people feel the same way of like winter wasn't such a big thing, before they had kids, but there was that shift.
Right.
Or
Because
like different stages in our life, different seasons become harder. Like you remember how cranky I was in the summer about the heat. Maybe I'm just that cranky. You know what I mean? But I don't remember either complaining when I was 10 years old about the heat. I was just so happy.
right. I don't remember as a kid either just complaining about the different weathers. I think as I got older also, like that's when it started bothering me more. But the one thing that I do find that helps me a lot in the winter is making sure that everything is properly heated and that I'm properly dressed for the weather.
Right.
So it's like
So you're
I
not cold.
cannot, right. So I'm just not cold. Like if I'm not cold, I'm happy. If I'm
Right.
cold, I'm not. And
Right.
really that's what it boils down to. So it's like put on the heat, even if it costs more money. Put
Right.
on the heat. Like there was one year where when I first had moved into my house, and we didn't know like how to use the heating system properly, and I wasn't sure if it was even going to work, and I didn't know how much it would cost. And so what I did that year was we just used like the plug-in things rather than the actual heating system. And I remember being so miserable, and it happened to be, it was like the most brutal winter. Like it snowed just like every single day, and it was freezing. And I remember like my body never fully got warm, and I was just such a crank, right? I was just in such a bad mood. I didn't want to do anything. Like my body was just aching beyond. And so the next year I said, what am I doing? Like turn on the regular
Right.
heat. Like
Right.
why not? And after that, it was a totally different experience for me. So much so like it's important for me to heat up the car before I go into
Right.
it. It's important that when I come home, the heat is on, that when I wake up, the heat is on. And that's something that for me is worth investing in. And I know for some people, like depending on the size of your house, it could be extremely like expensive to do that. So some people turn it off in the middle of the night, or they'll put it on a schedule throughout the day. Like for me, heat is one of those things that I don't mess around with because I know it'll affect my whole quality of living.
There you
And
go.
for some people, it doesn't bother them. But for me, when I am cold, I don't want to do anything. And so it's important for me not to be cold.
Right.
And so in addition to that, the next thing that helps me a lot is that I have a hot water bottle. That is my best friend. I like carry it around with me
What do you do with
everywhere.
the hot water bottle?
Well, I'm constantly like filling it up.
You're
And it's
drinking
just
the hot water?
no, not drinking it. Well,
just
also
holding-
drinking teas. I just hold it.
You just hold the hot
I think
water.
it's like a security blanket also.
Okay,
like,
interesting.
yeah, I don't know if I ever had one as a kid. Like, I should ask my mother if I
hot
had like
water
a
bottle?
security blanket. Like, those kids that walk around, they're like
Yeah.
teddy bears and stuff. I don't know if I had one, but it's just like it's a hot water bottle. And I have them in different sizes and different colors. And my friend even bought me one for my birthday.
Interesting.
So, and I just I walk around with them, and they're just they're great. Like, you can put it on your hands, you can put it on your feet, you can use it for your back, you can use it for your shoulders. Like, they have all different types, and it's just it's warm and it's cozy.
Cool.
And it makes me happy.
That's very interesting.
You're like, I'm not sure if this is something cool or if this is something extremely weird. Like, like when you're in that bordering point.
No,
Yeah.
no, it sounds like a very good creative idea, Shira.
Listen, you know what? At the end of the day, it works.
Right.
Right.
We
And I
have to
think that's what it
find-
boils down to. What works?
Right. And I think that going back to what you said before about shifting I want to shift that mentality too. I don't want to be this for this winter. I don't want to have to endure it and get through it. I want to find the things that work, and I want to enjoy enjoy the seasons, enjoy the fact that it changes. Yeah, it's not, if I had to choose one, I'd probably choose sun, but I don't. I live in New York right now, and there's 4 seasons, and I appreciate all those seasons.
Yeah, and there's so much to offer in each season, and we're people who live in areas where the seasons pretty much stay the same. I think it gets boring,
Right.
and I think that they don't they lose out on what snow looks
It's
like.
funny. I was actually talking about it yesterday because I was going, we should move to Miami because, I kind of go through that every other day in the winter. And not that it's even the winter yet, but it's starting the winter. But I was saying that my friend who lives in Florida, she had to endure the summer because it's really hot there.
Yes.
So there's kind of, well, not everywhere because California's kind of nice all year round. But
So if you live in California, once it hits 60 degrees, they're wearing Uggs and they're freezing.
right, so they call that their winter.
That's
But
their winter.
The point is that in other places, not everywhere, they have to endure a really, really hot summer. They have to get through that. Even being in the pool is not an option, because
Yeah.
it's too hot. So I guess we have to endure the winter. They have to endure their summer. There's nothing is going to be, oh my gosh, this is taking me on a whole different
Is there an
thought.
ideal place?
I'm
Or is everything like a package deal?
Okay, so the concept of a good enough mother?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so just to explain this quickly, we explain that there's no such thing as a perfect mother, right?
Yeah.
The good enough mother is the perfect mother.
Right.
Because if you were perfect, you would be neurotic, right?
Mhm.
So you need to be good enough. You need to make mistakes. I kind of feel like that with the seasons also, because if there was there's no perfect. If I had sun all year round, I would miss the winter.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no perfect seasons. It's the good enough in
So
a
there's always
way.
going to be something to complain about wherever you are.
Exactly. And you just have to kind of appreciate what you have when you have it, and how much time you have of it. And there's no there would be, if I lived in Florida, I would miss the fall, I'd miss the spring, I'd miss the winter a little bit. I'd
Yeah.
be like, oh, I really want to go skiing. Let's go to New York for the weekend. You know what I mean?
It's always that way. Things that we used to have become nostalgic, even if we hated it when we had it. When
Exactly.
you look back, it's oh, I wish I had the winter. And it's you don't
I mean, my cousin lives in Bonita Rock, and she hates the heat.
Mhm.
So she's so jealous of me in New York.
Yeah.
And she has the heat almost all year round.
Right. And so it's really, I think it's important to keep that in mind. As we find ourselves complaining, I think for me, I want to turn my mind to what can I do about it? How
Right.
can I fix it? And how can I not just fix the situation,
Right.
but also just fix my thoughts
Because
about
that's
it.
what it is. We can't change the fact that the winter is coming and the winter is long, but we can change our mentality we're not going to look at this as a time to endure. We're going to buckle down. We're going to get cozy, and we're going to see what can we get out of it. Look at it as a little bit of like a fresh start.
Yeah.
You know, it's the winter's coming. The whole summer I was out for lunch. I can organize my house. I can start making dinners again. I can, you know, work on some hobbies. I can work out on the gym. Like, what are things that I have been falling to the side that during this time right now I can focus personally, professionally? There's so many areas that it's the time now to focus on.
It's almost like instead of having a fuzzy brain, having a clear, calm brain. Where like you just have this time to just be like calm, to focus on what you need to get to, not so many distractions. And it's an opportunity. And I love that it's an opportunity. And I hope that we really both get the most out of it this year.
Yeah.
And,
exactly.
you know, I'm thinking back to the seasonal affective disorder. I know I'm jumping a bit, but I guess that's what this podcast is about. Even though generally we're both like very focused people. In terms of seasonal affective disorder, like one of the things that I read up about is that people who, let's say, are in the winter in New York, but then will go back home because let's say they're studying abroad here. If they go back home to Florida during their winter break or they go back for like a month, after 2 weeks, the symptoms will go away.
Oh, interesting.
Which is very interesting because it
go.
really shows you how much it is dependent on the light and the cold.
Exactly.
Like it is environmental. And those people, some of the times they're on antidepressant medication just for the winter and then they go off of it for the summer. They don't need to take it anymore. And so the symptoms are so correlated with the environment, which is so important to recognize. And, you know, sometimes then it's important for people to think about, like, when you're choosing a place to live, how will it affect my body and how will it affect my mood? Because there really is a strong correlation between your environment and how you feel.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, sometimes even just like kind of planning that trip to the sun in the winter, you know, somewhere. And a lot of study shows that just the planning of it and the anticipation of the trip, you know, is 80% of the excitement. But maybe go somewhere sunny for a day or two so that way you can get that, you know, get that vitamin D, get that sun, get that restart a little bit to be able to get through the rest of the winter, like do it kind of midway through. But for people who can't get away, you know, sometimes it just doesn't work in your schedule. You know, there are other things to do that can help. I was reading that, you know, finding kind of like a specific hobby or something like to take on in the winter really helps with like feelings of like sadness.
Yeah. And I think like it's important to note to what you had said before is that we are talking maybe from a place of privilege, where like it is a privilege to be able to go on a midwinter vacation. It is a privilege to go and live somewhere that's warm. And so like I think like we have to keep that in mind.
Overall, I think that really going down and like researching this topic of winter blues has taught me so much about the fact that it doesn't have to be something to endure. And, you know, we can, and kind of what you said, like we can take control of the situation. We don't have to let it control us. And if it's setting personal, professional goals, if it's, you know, whatever it is that you decide to do over the next few months, to look at it as an opportunity and not just a time to endure.
Right. For me, I think like the biggest pieces, like I said earlier, is make sure my surroundings are keeping me comfortable. Make sure you're physically comfortable, because if you're not physically comfortable, you're going to be miserable. It's so important to do what you have to make your body comfortable. The same way in the summer you have to do it, right? You have to make sure you have the proper air conditioning so that way you're not like sticky and sweaty. Here, you know, we have the opposite effect where you're freezing. And so make sure that you are properly warmed and do what you can to make that happen, right? The right clothing. And, you know, earlier I was thinking like winter is the best time because you sort of get dressed, but you don't really have to get dressed because it's like you just stick a coat on anything. Right. And you just can wear boots and like leggings and you're good to go and you look dressed. Like I think like that's just like the easiest.
That is something to appreciate.
Yeah, that is something to appreciate. You can't do that in the summer. Like
and I guess I would be really curious to like hear from listeners. What are some things concerns they have about the winter? Like what are some worries and what are some things that they've seen that has helped them? And then I'm curious for us to also to kind of check in after the winter and see, has this conversation, has this thinking about these kind of things, has it helped us?
Yeah, because, you know, I think as we delved into it, like we find more and more that comes up. Like I'm thinking now about driving in the winter is scary, right? Thinking back to like all the ice on the floor, the black ice, thinking about the shoveling, like and the dirtiness of that. One time last year, I was driving home from an event at like 12 o'clock at night.
I remember this.
It was probably like one of the scariest days of my life. I was driving and it was dark. I was alone in the car and I was on the highway. And all of a sudden, there was no snow on the radar. Like it didn't say it was going to be bad weather, and it just started snowing insanely. Like I didn't even know which direction the wind was coming from because it felt like it was coming from every single direction and my car couldn't handle the wind. And so I just like didn't know, like, do I call the police? Like, do I call my husband? Like, what do I do? Who can help me? And it's like really nobody. And I see like I can't even notice the car in front of me even though all of its lights are on. And so what I do is I slow down as all the other cars slow down. Everybody's keeping space in between each other. And then I realize like the car, I don't even know which direction I'm going. I can't even see the street. I don't even know if I'm on the road anymore.
Wow.
And like I was lucky that on the side that it wasn't just a barrier and then a cliff. There was actually like grass on the side of the, I think it might have been the Palisades or something. And I just stopped and I like looked at I was able to see where my car is based on like the GPS. And my husband's looking at it and he's like, you're not on the road.
Wow.
He's like, and I'm like, it looks like a road.
Wow.
And he's like, it's not a road. And so I was like, you know what, let me sit here for a little bit. And I sat there and it was super, super scary because I didn't know if a car would see me, wouldn't see me. I put my hazards on as much as possible. But like after 15 minutes, it cleared up. But within those 15 minutes, like I didn't know if I'm going to sleep in the car that night.
Wow.
Like I didn't know if the car would just like flip around. And so like those are like some of the memories. On the one hand, now I look back and I'm like, oh, like that was a funny story to tell. But like in that moment, I was petrified for my life.
Right.
And so like some of that is like unpredictable with the weather. And like driving in the snow can be scary. Driving in the hail can be very scary as well.
Yeah.
And so like these are some of the things that come up in the winter, like that, yes, concern me, but also like for the elderly people, like thinking of any elderly relatives or like people who have like broken bones because of falls or like broke their hip or things like that. Like you have to be super, super cautious, like on the ice and just in winter weather brings up a lot.
And on that note, enjoy your winter.
What a way to like finish up, right? Like we started off with all the things we love about winter, and now it's like warning, be careful.
I guess we're just being, we're not trying to be like kind of like the toxic positivity of like winter is great. Like there's concerns, personal experiences, concerns for other people. Like it's not easy, but if we try to shift our mentality while still accepting the things that are hard for us and being mindful of the things that could be dangerous, we can hopefully have a better winter that we had last year.
Yeah. So yeah, this is really interesting and we're excited to share it with everybody and we will continue more next time.
Yep. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.